In Java, we can mark a thread to be either daemon or non-daemon. What's the difference between them? Does it matter if the thread is a virtual thread or not? This is what we'll discuss in this video. Hi, Marcio from Ejectus. I'm planning a video on the JVM shutdown hook, and before doing that, I want to discuss daemon versus non-daemon threads, as there's a relation between these two subjects. Let's start with a hello world kind of program. There's a say method which prints the current thread name and the message. And the program, right after it enters the main method, it says hello, and right before returning from the main method, it says bye. Let's run it. As expected, it printed hello and bye, and it was run by the main thread, as we can see here. Our program stopped executing right after it returned from the main method. But if we have something like, say, a web server, the program keeps running, right? So if a program stops executing after it returns from the main method, how can we make it not do that? In other words, how can we make our program outlive the main thread? I've changed our initial program, and after it says hello, we start a thread named task, which runs this task. When the task starts, it says hello, then it does a 3-second countdown. After it does the countdown, it says bye. Right, let's run this one. This time our program continued after it returned from the main method. It only stopped after our test thread finished. What if we change our task so it, for all practical purposes, runs indefinitely? One way for our task to run indefinitely is to begin from the integer max value. So it's many seconds. Let's run this one. As we can see, and as expected, our program will take a very long time to finish. So let's forcefully terminate it. So when we create a thread in Java, by default, it is a user thread. In other words, it's a non-daemon thread. And what happens if we make it a daemon thread instead? Let's run this one, and it will be easier to see probably in the console. Our program stopped, and there was no countdown. The main thread completed normally, but our test thread did not complete. And notice that this message got interrupted, was not printed, meaning that our daemon thread was forcefully terminated. It was not interrupted. Therefore, we can conclude that a program stops executing when the last non-daemon thread finishes. To be sure, let's look at the documentation. Here I have the Java docs for the Java-Lang runtime class. It says here about the JVM shutdown sequence. And one of the ways for the JVM to start a shutdown sequence when the number of live non-daemon threads drops to 0 for the first time. And that's what we observed in our examples. What about virtual thread? Does it make a difference if the thread is a platform thread or is it a virtual thread? Once again, let's look at the documentation. I have here the Java docs for the setDaemon method of the thread class, and it says the daemon status of a virtual thread is always true and cannot be changed by this method to false. So a virtual thread, it's always a daemon thread. And if we're using the thread building API introduced in JDK 21, we can't change the daemon status when using the virtual builder because this method does not exist. For instance, in the platform builder, there's the daemon method, and there's also one which takes a Boolean value. But this method does not exist in the virtual builder either. Cool, right? I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something new. I hope you learned something interesting. And that's it. See you in the next video. Bye.